Hey, let's get started on this one. Hopefully this background is not too loud. Okay. All right. Okay, so let's get started here. So for this video, or for this live section, I'm gonna be introducing you to the new web component framework by before Semicolon, and you can see it here. I put the link in the chat that you can check. Um, But essentially, this is a framework that is currently in beta that I'm just working on. But then so far it's been super powerful, and it's obviously distinct. It's different from the competition and something else you can find out there. Like I said, it's still in beta, but it's a flexible and extensible and contextual component. The context here, it's something built into the framework. It's not something you have to import to create context. This is contextual components. I'm gonna give you a demo on that. It's also reactive, so changing properties in the component automatically update your stuff. So everything you do change have an effect on the DOM. There's also directives that use to simplify the way you work in the template. There's also data and event binding, like in any web component framework, and in a simple and lightweight uh, and in a simple, lightweight uh, API. So so you can see here it's 117 kilobyte, but once you download it, once you but it's not this amount that is sent to the browser. I believe uncompressed and normal will be 14 kilobytes. But when you go through the caching and it's compressed, it's pretty much 6 kilobyte of a framework that you have to put in a browser. So with this framework, I promise no tedious state management and DOM manipulation. So you never have to do that unless you have to. You're doing something really, really complex. There's no robust data store and contact setup. So nothing like setting up the contacts and contacts provider or Redux or stuff like that to do anything. So there's no something like the React hooks to update state or effects or something like that. There's nothing like that. There's no verbose API, so it is built on top of the native web component API. So the only thing there's a couple of additions, but it's pretty much JavaScript, CSS, and HTML, and nothing else. There's no weird HTML and JavaScript syntax as well. So there's a lot. Whenever you find this framework, there's always this syntax they come up with. There's a little things here and there, but there's not much. So I can say there's probably 4 special properties that you have to be aware of that kind of look weird, but it's nothing HTML or JavaScript syntax related. So it's just special stuff. So there's a quick example here. You see here there's observe attributes. This is native on the API, but this framework does something special beyond what the native things does. So you see an example how you set up a style sheet. So the reason it's called style sheet because in any component you create, there's a style property. So this is not meant to override that. So you can still access that style property so you can work on. So there is the template. The template is different. It is essentially different than React or Angular or Vue, where we have the render function or something like that related. Or even when you do lit HTML, there's a render concept, that a function that it gets called every time a state gets updated. So it recalculates your DOM and only changes what actually is different. This is different. This framework you provided a template and it used that template. So that template is parsed once. So the first time it runs, it parsed that template once, and everything you do is done directly on the DOM based on the fact that something changed or not. So it already managed the DOM communication there. So there's no virtual DOM or something like that for you to be concerned about. We've seen an example how so here is the example of data binding. So you use curly braces, a single one, to put things in there. You can put logic. So you see take the type, which is one of the attributes, or if it has no type, just use button. So you see here it is special attribute attr, which is allows you to set attributes on the element based on some logic that you do. So you see here, just set the disable attribute if there is a disable attribute he provided. Out of focus, and there's a name, and here an example of on-click and event. So this is how HTML does on-click. By the way, this is all how HTML works. So this syntax of attribute is also something that it's built in HTML. Nothing strange there. So here we attach the on-click, and it's called handle click. And yeah, here I set up my event handler, and it's just simple as that. So when you render, these actually don't get rendered. So you're never gonna see attr on the DOM. You're never gonna see on-click on the DOM. So make sure it removes those things, but it sets the event listeners by default. If you see here, there's a event. So it is a special syntax to pass the event. So you can say, I want to call the handle click and I want to pass the event. So you have this event with $sign initialized. So this is the way you tell it that whenever he calls this event handler, he needs to use the event to pass it on. So here I'm not using the event, but you see how he receives the event. Here I'm just dispatching something. And there's also this concept of registering your component. I'm going to go a little bit on that later on, as we're going to see. So there's another example here on the paginated list. See here we see called directive. So by the way, this attr is considered a directive attribute. It's not a normal attribute. So here we see a if directive. It just look like a normal attribute. So if loading, so loading here will provide it as attribute, as props, as you call it in React. You see, there's another one here. If it's not loading and there's no item length, just show this. And this framework also does something very special with slots. I'm gonna show you a little bit again. But this slot here gives a whole superpowers, and it uses the slot just to do something really unique that you cannot do in any framework you can find out there. I'm going to show you that, which is allow you to work directly on the HTML file without having to compile or do something on the JavaScript side. So this is really, really, really powerful, and allow you to just set something very simple as minimal and be able to do something so complex directly on the HTML without having to write any JavaScript if you don't want afterwards. We can see here more stuff. See here, there's a repeat directive. So we see repeat for every items. So the items is provided into the attribute. So it's a repeat of every items. And the way you access the items in the repeat object is using the item. Here, there's also the key. And this repeat takes any list like or iterable object. So you can pass object literals, you can pass sets, you can pass maps, you can pass arrays, you can pass your object literal. It's just gonna go and know how to detect those. And you can even create iterable objects and pass to the repeat. It will just handle and repeat your DOM accordingly. And the way you access each item of that repeat repetition is just using the item here. So here I'm saying passing the details here with this item, and how you access is through the key. Again, this is an example of the action button. So here you see how we use the action button, which is declared here. So you can definitely have nested stuff. And here I'm setting up an on click, and I'm setting the load more here. Again, very, very simple. And this is how we would look on a DOM. So paginated list items, and then you do something like this, and it just renders magically. So there's also the GitHub page they can go check. There's more documentation you can read on. So there's an application on attributes, everything you can read on. But of course, this is still in beta, like I said. But if you can help test it and be part of it, if you want to contribute with suggestions and feedback, that will be greatly appreciated. But you can check this repo for more details and stuff like that. I'm going to give you a quick DOM right now. So the way to install this, so you can do npm, or you can do directly on the browser. I'm going to do directly on the browser. So I'm going to grab this link here, and I'm going to show you how ridiculously small it is. But you also, if you want to grab a specific version, you can use the @ here. So here, right now is on a version 0.10.2. I just pushed 2 bugs last night. 2 bug fixes. So if you want to grab a specific version for you, you can just specify it here in the link as well. So I'm going to grab this baby here, and let's jump on the code. So here I already have an empty project directory set up, so nothing crazy here. So what first I'm gonna do is create my HTML. So I'm gonna do index here. I'm using WebStorm. Is one of my favorite IDE to work on, by the way. So here I can set up what I think I can do. I can just set up the script right in the header. Seems I need to grab, because this is a different computer. Seems like I'm having some trouble. Opening here. Good. Seems like I just broke something there. Give me a second. Seems like my copy paste didn't work quite well. So here now I can just set my link. So I'm gonna go here and do hello my component demo. So here I can go set up on the browser here. So there you go. I have here it rendered just fine. So I'm gonna open here this tools. So the first thing I want to show you is how ridiculously small, and then after I show you everything it does, you're probably gonna understand it better. So if I refresh here, you see there's this simply 6 kilobytes of thing, and we can take a look at how it looks here when it's compressed. It is a lot of stuff, but just comes down to 800 lines of code, but also this is process and everything like that. So it is a very small framework, and I'm just rendering this, so everything looks fine. So let's do something really cool. So I'm gonna set up a script here, and the way you grab the component, where you grab it is just grabbing from the window. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna create a class, and this is how you use it, by the way. I'm gonna create a class and call it demo app, and you're gonna extend the web component. And here I'm gonna set up my template. And by the way, I'm using the Google Copilot. You're probably gonna see some autocomplete here, which is Google Copilot. I've been playing with this for quite a while, and I really love it and recommend it. Here I'm just gonna return a simple slot. Again, it does something really special. So just doing that, and then I can register. There's two ways to register. I can just do demo register. I can just do demo register here, and it works. But I'm gonna be doing a lot of more components. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna comment this guy out. So we can do this is the register all, and here I can pass a list of things. So there's very important slotted components. So it is very important to separate the components that have slots inside. So this should come first, because it has to do with the way the browser renders stuff. So you normally try to resolve your slots before the component, and that may come down to be produce some really unpleasant results. Something I haven't been able to get around while building this framework. But just make sure you register your slotted components first. So here I'm to register my demo here app. Pretty cool. So here I can just say demo app, and here's where the magic, where something that makes this framework super unique. So here is pretty much my playground. So what I said is the template is pretty much a slot. So anything I put inside would just be grabbed and rendered inside this component. So if I say move my title inside here, I'm actually gonna make this browser share here. So then I can move, so we can see this thing side by side. So I'm reduce the size here. We're not gonna do anything there. So side by side, so it's much easier here. So if I can refresh, so everything looks fine. So let's look at the DOM, what's going on. Here, if I come to the body, is there a demo app? I use it in the shadow root. And here I have my web component. So there's the H1 here inside. So I have the slot is here, says it's connected to the H1. So this is pretty much built-in stuff. there's other configuration. I can say static mode closed. So you see here on the right, it says shadow root is open. I can say closed. This is how you control your shadow root. So here I can see now it's closed. You can also say none, which is a special one, only existing for this framework, where it pretty much renders it directly under. So you see the slot does not work when there's no shadow root. So here it just rendered direct with no shadow root. So I'm just gonna leave it out for now, to be none, to be default, which is open, and we have our shadow root on our open mode. So here's one thing very special about this. Just because I put something inside here, I can just close here. Let's do something inside here. I can then say I want to repeat a p tag. Repeat this p tag for this. I'm gonna do 1, 2, 3, and here inside I'm gonna use item. So now when I refresh, you see repeat 1, 2, and 3. So this is something very unique to this framework, because in other frameworks, what you have to do this logic inside the component itself. You have to go inside a component and add that logic. But because this is also considered to be inside on the DOM, I can pretty much create my entire app inside the HTML. And all this does is provide context. Again, this is a contextful way to create components. So let's say I then create my items here. So I create my items. I don't have to put it on the DOM right here. I can then say use the items to repeat. And if I refresh, it still works fine. Just to prove that, I'm going to add a new one, say 4, and then a refresh here. Now we have our 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is how powerful it is. This is, for this framework, this is called context provider. So it's just a component. A context provider is just component that have all the data, and it simply renders a slot. That's how a context provider is. So that means I can create any component and then go on directly on the DOM and use it. So just to give an example, let me create an action button. Extends my component, and what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna return a button, and inside this button I'm gonna render a slot, and if it's not provided, I'm just gonna render a label to back up, and here I'm gonna specify the type, and I'm gonna take a type. See, I'm just using this stuff, but I need to tell it what to use. So I'm gonna say static observe attributes. Here I'm gonna put my label. See how my Copilot's really good. So I'm gonna say the type. Since Copilot is learning a lot about this framework, I'm also gonna receive disabled. So actually I put this in the template string. So it really doesn't matter if you put on template string or not. I like template string because it's much nicer. It allows me to do here this. So here, so other web components library and frameworks, they work with template strings. It doesn't need this. So in the template string, you have to do JavaScript template string, which is the $sign in front of the curly braces. This doesn't need that. So let's use the attribute directive. So I'm saying put the disabled attribute only if there is a disable provided. So here, disable here, and like that. So like that we have, so I can say if there's no type, just use button as type, just like that. By default, every attribute comes as empty. It's not provided as an empty string. So now I can come here and register my button. pretty much that. Let's see if everything all right here. So now I can come here on the DOM and I can say action button. Just like that. And I can say click me. So now we have our button here. Pretty cool. Let me bring the console. Let's make this button do something. So I'm going to declare a function here. So I'm going to say on click. I'm going to take an event and I'm just going to log this event. I'm going to say clicked event, and here, because I created this thing in here, I can just come right here and say on click, just call on click here. I can just say, just call it. So now if I come here in the browser, something is going wrong. Say, it seems not like it. I'm wondering if I grab the latest version. I wonder what's going on here. Maybe there's something. Oh, click here. Oh, that's true. Here it makes sense because it was trying to find the on click, but the on click is inside the button and not there, so it makes sense. He was trying to find the on click function inside the demo app, which we haven't declared there yet, so that's why it was failing. So let me just move this. I just was so like that. So now it should work. So now if I click here, we see the on click here. It says it's receiving undefined, and this is because we're not actually passing the event. So if I want to pass the event, I can just pass the event here. So now if I click this, we get the pointer event declare here. I can pass anything. I can pass 12, and also the order where you pass the event is not necessary. True. So we passing event. So here event still works fine, and then we can pass the n, which should be 12. So we see here now it's passing 12. Here we see the event right there as well. So pretty straightforward thing. What I want to do is I want to do something like that. I want to handle this event on the DOM here and not on the button. So one thing that this framework allows you to do is to provide quick snippets to execute on events. So here I'm going to say simply, hey, dispatch event. I want you to dispatch a new event, and it's going to be a click. So this is good. So if whenever you want to create a function that only does a single thing, which is what I was planning to do this. So now whenever this happens, we can grab this event here on the DOM. So here now, what I can do here, I'm gonna close this action button. I can say on click, and I'm just gonna execute something real quick. So I'm just gonna console log the event right on the HTML. So here, I can just click here. We see we're getting 2 events here. And it's because of propagation. So we listen to the same event here. So I'm probably gonna have to do event stop propagation. And then when I click, it's probably best to have this on the new line. Now this got very complex. So let me just move this event pass event, and let's patch the click event. So now I can click here. Now we get a single event. So our button is pretty useful now. Pretty straightforward. I could also repeat this button if I wanted to. Let's see if that goes well. Put a button here. And what I'm gonna log is the item. So now here 1, we click 1, 2, and this is probably gonna work only if I pass here to the demo app. Yep. Shouldn't like it's not grabbing the item. Which is fine. So the item doesn't work with the event here. Oh, I didn't log anything anymore. Here, target. Next content. Here, we're gonna grab the content, which is gonna be click me. And what if I put this item inside here? So that's gonna be like that. So we just pretty straightforward. So you can see here, pretty straightforward here on the FPM. We can see the inside here is that there's a button, and it's just simple like that. So this is very, very powerful thing. You just do your stuff. You just declare a bunch of components, and you come here and then you do your thing. One thing before I wrap this up is the idea of contacts. So I can declare static. So if I come here on a button, just to give an example, if I come here and try to log items 0, it's probably going to blow up. So inside a button here, I'm trying to add log the item 0, which is something that exists inside the demo app and not inside the action app. So if I try that, it screams at me. Well, there's no items app, so there's a bunch of error here now. Makes sense because items is not defined. But so this data is only available directly on the children here, and once you go deep inside the component, it is no longer available. So I can access these items here, like I'm accessing here, but I cannot access it inside the action button. So in order for me to do that, there's something called static. Is it something called contacts, which is built into the component. So now what I can do is provide items in here as contacts. So it means when I provide something as contacts, is available deeply. And now, just like that, we have it render. So now the action button is able to read something from the demo app directly because the demo app is providing that context. So any children component, any child component that is inside this demo app can access this context that I'm provided. So this is a great way to provide something deeply into part of your components. Or if you want just data shallow one, you can just use properties on a class and or attributes like this that is just the access directly on child that exists. So you may be asking, well, this is probably deep, but when I say deep, I mean inside the component, inside the action component. It's not. This is actually many levels deep. So you see, I was able to access. I can access items here. So if I just say items 1 here, it's still gonna work fine. So here I'm able to access it. This is 2 levels deep inside the demo app. So anything I declare inside the class here will be accessed anywhere inside this demo app. But if I want to go inside another component that's inside the demo app body, I'll need to provide it as context. So this is something built in to provide data deeply and create context. And just to give you a demo. So there's also life cycles callbacks. So on mount, I'm gonna set up. So you see on mount. See whenever it renders, is gonna log the on mount. I'm gonna set timeout here, where after 2.5 seconds, I'm gonna update the context. So I cannot just call it that context directly. And by the way, how you access this, I'm just gonna first show you how you access context. So if I want to access context, all I have to do is say this dot context, and it will just render there. So here we'll say it's accessing the items context, but in the context. So, but I cannot just directly change this context. So it's just kind of like React state, but it's context. Here I can just say this update context, and I can say just update items, and I'm gonna make this only 2 items now. So when I do that, after 2 seconds, and then it just updates there. So you see after 2.5 seconds, it updates the DOM when it only gets that, and now it's only rendering 2. Pretty easy right there. So let's say I want to bring this title of this. I can still say app title here, and then inside here I can just do app title, and nothing changes. So there you go. After 2 seconds, it's gonna send that. So I'm gonna remove this. So this is a way to provide context that I showed you. It's a way to center that. And if I want to also change the app title, I can just say demo. You can do it after 2.5 seconds as well. So you see, anytime I update the reset property, you also is gonna update. So after 2.5 seconds, see the title also updates. So whenever I interact, I change something directly on the context. So for context, I need to use the update context, but for everything else, I can just reassign it working normally like any property. And also notice that one thing, everything that you say in the observer attributes are accessed through properties. So we can just log here this type. So you see not provided. So let's log the label instead, which is provided. Maybe not yet. Oh, because this template, I forgot. There's also on update. And you get the prop, old, and a new value. Let me try to see if I can log this guy. So you see what comes on update on the button there. So you see we only got the context update. So this is because now the button is listening to the context of the demo app by default. So whenever there's a context change, it will get updated. But see, it didn't get updated for for when the title changed. So the title is specific to the demo app, and the context is deeply provided. So anything inside the demo app will inherit this context. Anyway, so you see we get the update. But if I was providing it a label, so instead of doing this, what if I do label? I'm passing the label here. It's not very happy about it. So if I say click me, so here, and I was providing a click me there. So whenever the first time it renders, he didn't get the click me. But you see now he's getting the label as provided. So the reason it didn't work like that is because anything inside a slot is ignored. So if I put something inside a slot, it's not going to be rendered. It's not going to be pucked. So now we see, now I can able to pass the item here and it renders fine. So before, because it was inside a slot, it was getting ignored, which is probably something I need to change. But I don't know how I feel about that. But you see, it was able to get the thing directly, but it still didn't change much. But you see, it didn't get an update because technically we just removed the two DOMs and we didn't change. So the two ones that was there, it was still the label was the same, so they didn't get updated. So you see, we only get update when something changed. So we get it, and we correctly got a context update, which is something we change inside the demo app, and then we get notified deeply. So let's say and to show you the demo, so instead of this, so I'm gonna say button label just for sake of demo. So I'll say click me, button label here. Instead of item, I'm gonna pass button label. So it says click me. And then after a while, what I'm gonna do is change this button label to, let's say, click me again, just for the hell of it. So if I come here in 2.5 seconds again, and we see we get updates. Label click me went from click me to click me again, and this log is coming from this update. So now we changed, because we changed the attribute, and it got a update, a notification that its label changed. So inside here, you should never try to reassign something directly on the property, because then you're going on a loop. So when you update again something inside here, it also gets an update again. So I'm gonna remove that, and let's do something simple here. So whenever I'm gonna remove this, I'm gonna remove this again, increase count. Whenever this get updated, we're gonna set count, this count plus equal 1, and the count does not exist yet, so I'm gonna come here, count is equal 0, and we don't have this again, so I'm not gonna do any updates again. I'm gonna remove this static again. So we have count, and here I'm gonna render the count directly. So now I'm gonna say whenever I click increase count, it's gonna update the count, and it's very, very simple. So I create a count here, and so you see everything I did was create a count, then here I'm rendering the count in the peak tag, and on a button, all I'm saying is, hey, whenever there's a click happen, increase the count by 1, and then it does it. We can decrease the count, and we can do it like that. Now, if I want to increase the count and decrease the count, it just works. So it allows us to execute simple things in here, but you should not use this, take advantage of this to execute complex things. So whenever there's complex things, just call the function directly that you create inside your app. Before I wrap this up, let me show you a quick way to actually style this button. So let's declare a style sheet. Here we're gonna return. So it doesn't require you to do anything extra. So I can just say, for example, host display inline block. And if we check this button, actually, we're gonna see that you get a host display inline block here. But because I'm on this IDE, it detects when I do style here. So you see it has a different syntax. So because of that, I like to do it in here instead. Because he recognized that I'm writing CSS. And if you do this, it still works fine. So if you write a style or whatever, so you see the inline style here. So then I can do host button. I'm gonna do appearance none. Background, I'm gonna do a nice black one. I'm gonna do a color white, and border none, and then padding. I'm gonna do a 12 pixels on the top and 15 pixels on the right. I'm gonna do text transform uppercase. I'm gonna do ladder spacing a bit, 0.05 RAM. And like that, we have a button cell. So I'm gonna just round this corner, put a radius of 5 pixels. And like that, we have the buttons. And also I'm gonna add a cursor pointer. So just like that, we have a simple contour. Very, very simple. And it works just great. So very minimal. And we do it directly here. So the idea is simple. Create your components and then use it directly on your HTML. And don't do everything in your JavaScript side. So every logic you don't have to do on the JavaScript side. It allows you to do this directly on the HTML file, and everything like the data binding, event, listeners, everything just works fine if you just do it there, as long as you create this contacts app and wrap everything around it, and it's just fine. So one thing I want to show you, that there's a reason I did this host and host button. I could just say button, but I did a host button. But let's say here I come and do static mode to none. So there's no shadow, not a shadow root. So if I just do shadow mode none, so you see here, correctly, node is not valid. So you see here it failed, and the reason it's failing here is because of this slot actually. And if I just, so slots don't work when you do don't work when you do shadow down of none, shadow root of none. But if I do this, everything works fine. So you see, it was able to grab the style streak, and the way it does it, we see when I go here, it no longer put the style in here. So if I remove this, and if I inspect my buttons here, you can see that it puts the style inside of here. So it's protected. But if I do shadow none, it doesn't. So the button here is just simple nothing. So it does nothing there. Where it does it just puts it on the title, on the header. And you see here, you don't see host again. So what do you see? You see the every host is replaced with the name of the tag. So action button here, display inline block. So if we inspect this guy, we can see that this is applied. Action button there perfectly. And it just adds that there. And your style is right there. It doesn't, you see it still applies the same way and it works fine. But if you want to hide it with a shadow root, you can just do normal and it still works just like normal, just fine, just like that. Sweet. And one last thing, actually, it's one thing that you often cannot do in other ones. So let's say I want to extend this button. Let's say I want to create a primary button. It's very tricky on other things where you have to pretty much declare everything, and then you're probably going to have to grab the style from here and there. But you can have something like a root. So this, let's pretend that this is the root. This is the root. And whenever you have a root component, you don't declare it. You don't register it. You only register the descendants, the extensions. So I'm only gonna do this. So primary button will extend the action button. So this is the reason you don't declare something, a button that is extended. A button, a component that's meant to be extended. So whenever you have a button that is meant to be extended, you don't register it. So in here, I'm saying I want to keep everything the same. I'm going to inherit everything from the action button, but I want to do something simple. I want to just, in here, I can just declare, I want to say this style sheet, super. So I'm calling the super style sheet. So this is how you extend the style. All I'm going to do here is make the button color and change the button and the button in the color and the color of the background and the text. And in here, an action button, I don't actually have to set up the color and the background. So I'm just default putting the style as the default for the button, and I leave everything to be extended. So from there, I can create a secondary button. And we call actually CTA button. In the CTA button, I'm gonna make this background, let's make it blue with the color still the same. So I have a CTA button now and I have a primary button. So we can just register them like that. So in my thing here, I can create a primary button. I can say primary and I can say CTA. By the way, you're probably wondering, how am I getting these names? So this framework also based on the name of the tag, on the name of you give it to the class, if you haven't realized this by now. But I can also give it a special name. So let's say I want to make this tag name secondary. So now I cannot do a CTA here. I can use the secondary. You can declare your tag names if you want to, if you don't want it to match the classes. So now if I refresh this, guys, oh, seems like I have an error here. Oh, I cannot do this. It's just super. This is why. So here I'm extending the style. So here I created two buttons out of my action button, and it still worked the same way. They still inherit this the things from the other one. So you can create a component that is meant to be extended. So you can create variation of that, which is based on the, we could be based on the style. It could be based on the you want to maybe you would just want to change the template. Maybe you just want to override the style. Maybe you just want to extend the template. You want to extend the anything else. You can create new properties. You want to give new capabilities of the thing. So you see here the primary button, all the thing it is doing is extending the style sheet. Is just giving some extra style to the button, and same for the CTA. If you want to do something else, of course I could do, but this framework is leveraging the power of inheritance, which is something React did not give you. Whenever you never use class component, you cannot extend other components, because then you get into all sort of stuff. But with this one, you can just extend component as long as the components meant to be extended are not registered. So everything else, you can register afterwards. So I only register primary and CTA button, and the action button that reserves sits there as the template, the thing I need to extend. So whenever I want to do a change on something to affect all other buttons or other components that extend this button, I can just come here and I can do a change. Maybe I want to support a new attribute, and I want to do something extra from the template here. So that's definitely up to you to do so. So this is an amazing capability, something I really miss, and I don't like the idea of maybe of course there's two ways to do composition, but I find this to be very powerful, because I'm a very big fan of object-oriented, and also I love function programming, but the fact that the native web component API is object-oriented, I just wanted to take advantage of that to in this framework, so you can work well like that. So this is how powerful. So I'll introduce you to create context API components, and this is extend. How do you call it? It's called abstract. Oh, this is abstract components. So abstract components. Abstract classes are classes that can only be extended and cannot be initialized. So this is the idea. So this is an abstract component because it's using an abstract class. And these are just normal components. Simple like that. The power of slots is amazing. Doing stuff right in the DOM is something I always wanted. I don't like, you see the idea when you do React and you do Angular and you do Vue, and there's always this app you create and everything is rendered inside that app, and everything else needs to go into the JavaScript. And I don't know if you know, but there's also something I created called HTML plus, which is server-side rendering. I wanted something to kind of complement that thing. So I have something that handles something, the data or the page on the server side, and I want something to handle our components on the client side. So in theory, what you can do, I haven't tested this yet, but it's something I'm really going towards is to have something that sends the page directly to the browser with everything that it needs, of course. And then that could be something like this. For example, this comes from the server directly on here. You see how when I check the view page source, it has my normal HTML. So that comes there. So that's great for SEO when you think about it. So it sends everything to the browser, and then from the browser, the web component picks it up. The web components pick it up and looks at this, and then resolves everything for you. Maybe you want to show a loader while it's trying to resolve those things. I promise going to do a detailed tutorial on this framework after it get out of the beta. But the idea is to kind of complement this idea of server side and client in a nice synchronous way, where they work well together, and one handle the back end and the other one handle the front end, and then you never have to do something. You never have to create your app entirely on JavaScript for the browser to render. So you can then have something good for the SEO for your website. So this is where I'm going with. I'm going with this framework, and I'm giving you extra stuff, right to work on the template as well. Like you see the directive that I see for repeat, and then it's the if. here. Yeah, and it's pretty much it that I have to tell you. I would appreciate if you can just go and try this framework. Give it for a test run. Create issues. Um, yeah, definitely. Oops. Live demos. Definitely appreciate if you can just go and try the framework for yourself, see how it feels. I would appreciate feedbacks. I would appreciate if you can just go and create issues here. I have right now one issue that I detected, which is to fix the text error that's not working for when you update. But yeah, create issues and let me know what you think for sure. And I'm betting big on this framework going forward. And you should probably subscribe so you can get more demos of how to build full-fledged websites with a simple tool and with much details. Yeah, so that's pretty much what I had for you today. Thank you for watching. Catch you in the next one.